I just got home from the sleep study, and I have to say I feel better than I felt in a long time. Or at least, I did. A sleep study, or a polysomnography, as the doctor called it, is a test which required I sleep over at the facility for the night. They put me in a bed and hooked me up to a machine that sat on my chest and stuck some wires and tubes around my face and chest and such, making me feel more like a lab rat than a man suffering from insomnia. I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to sleep, given my recent insomnia, and the fact that now I was adding an unfamiliar location into the mix, but by 9 o'clock, I was out like a light. Of course, the first time in what feels like forever that I actually manage a good night's sleep is during the study to diagnose why I wasn't sleeping. I would be more apt to complain if I wasn't feeling so much better than I have been in days. I consider the possibility that perhaps it wasn't me at all, but my house. I've lived there for years, but maybe there was a slow gas leak or something that's been messing with my mind. Maybe the house was haunted. Maybe it's my bed. It was this line of thinking that I followed around all morning as I took myself out for breakfast, then busied myself in cleaning the house. That is, until I got the call from Dr. Brown, the sleep specialist. He asked for my name, and I identified myself. Then he proceeded with the results. Normally, you send the results to your primary care physician or prescribing doctor. However, in certain cases, we choose to call the patient directly, as in the scenario here. He sounded clinical as he spoke, which set my heart into overdrive. It was cancer. I knew it. I don't know how I knew it, but I did. As the doctor spoke, I popped 2 vitamins into my mouth, grinding them nervously between my teeth. Before I begin with the results, may I ask you if this was a typical night for you? I told him it wasn't, that I slept better last night than I had in a while. I would have thought quite the opposite, he said, not bothering to mask his surprise. You had quite the sleepless night last night, if you recall. I don't, actually, I told him. What do you mean? You woke up several times in the night. I've never seen so much activity during a sleep study, at least not while a patient remains asleep. Usually they wake up when we have to put them back to bed. I stopped chewing the vitamins. You had to put me back to bed? Oh yes, several times in fact. You kept getting out of bed and going to the window. Are you sure you don't remember any of this? No, not at all. Do you remember any dreams you had? I again said I didn't. He paused for a moment, then said, Do you have time this afternoon? I know you were just here this morning, but I would like to see if I can jog your memory of last night with the surveillance footage from the examination room. I'd like to know where your mind was during these episodes. These episodes? He said it in a way that made my stomach twist, like I'd been smashing my head against the wall while reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I suppose, for all I know, though, I had. Yeah, I said. I've got the day off, so I can come down right now if you want. I've got a few appointments, but why don't we get together after lunch, say around 2? Sure, I agreed. I'll see you then. I hung up the phone, not caring about pleasantries. Dr. Brown's office was small, not like the doctor offices you see in the movies, where there's big oak desks that the doctor leans over from his leather office chair to tell people that tumours are inoperable and may only have a few weeks to live. It was quaint, with a modest desk, a few Far Side comics on the walls, and a framed picture of his wife and children sitting next to a fern against the window. I liked it better, I think, than the alternative. It was quainter and more casual, and gave me less of an impression that I was about to receive the worst news in my life. Dr. Brown sat on the other end, typing into his computer. As you know, we took a video recording of the room as you slept, he said. I nodded. The nurse had pointed it out to me while sticking me with all the wires and tubes, and it had been one of the disclosures I'd signed before beginning the study. I'm pulling that video up now. I want to see if you remember any part of these episodes. I'm not looking for an answer one way or the other. I just want you to be honest with me, all right? I nodded again. He turned the computer screen to me, and I saw myself sleeping in the bed in grainy, grey night vision. This is the first episode, at approximately 1:45 in the morning, Dr. Brown said. I watched for a moment and was about to say something when I saw myself on the screen sit up. It was quick and fast and smooth, as if someone had pulled me up by invisible strings. My eyes were wide open, and in the night mode of the camera, I looked unsettlingly like an animal caught in the dark with a flashlight beam. I turned my body and got out of bed. My feet slapped against the floor as I walked towards the window and put my hand on the glass. I stood there for a few minutes until a nurse entered the room. "Sir?" she said. "Sir, is everything all right?" I didn't answer, but my open palm began to beat on the glass. The nurse crossed the room and put her hand on my elbow. I let her do so and lead me back to the bed without question. I laid down and she tucked me in. I closed my eyes as if nothing had happened. "I don't remember any of that," I said. "Did that happen again?" "Not exactly," Dr. Brown said. He sped the video up until 2:23 a.m, where he stopped, and let it play at a normal pace. I sat up again, this time more quickly. I hurried to the window and began to bang on it, almost frantically. The nurse, a different one this time, entered my room. "Are you all right?" she asked, crossing the room. The pounding against the glass was hard and fast, like I was trying to escape. She put her hand on my shoulder, and the second she did, I whirled around, my mouth agape and my eyes wide, and I began to scream, a horrid, barely human scream. She leapt back and screamed as well. 2 men, orderlies I imagine, burst into the room seconds later. I hadn't moved, hadn't touched her nor either of the men, but just stood there, screaming, again and again and again. Hearing the sound made me wonder why my throat didn't hurt earlier this morning. "Do you remember any dreams you had last night?" the doctor asked as I stopped screaming on the video screen and was again led to bed. "No, I still don't remember anything," I answered distantly. "Is that it?" He shook his head. "One more." I was petrified to find out what the last episode was. 3:33 a.m. I suddenly wake up and leap out of bed, throwing the sheets to the side with my legs and pulling at the equipment with my hands. My face is a mask of raw terror as I scream at the top of my lungs and run to the door. The nurse and 2 men from before burst into the room, and I knock the poor woman to the ground in what appears to be a mad dash for escape. I'm screaming, and I can tell then that this time it's not mindless noise, but that I'm actually saying something. I listen closely to try to make it out, but I can't tell what it is. I fight against the men who are working on restraining me, all while screaming in complete and unmistakable terror. This scene goes on for what seems like hours, although it only lasted a few moments, before my body goes completely slack in the arms of the orderlies, and I am back asleep. I was afraid to ask, but I couldn't help myself. What was I saying?" "You don't recall?" Dr. Brown asks. "No, I don't fucking recall," I say, not able to help my fear masked in anger. "I don't remember a goddamn bit of that happening last night. Will you just tell me what's going on?" To be quite honest, I don't know what's going on either. I would like to run a few more tests to properly get a diagnosis out. It's probable that you have a combination of dream anxiety disorder and somnambulism, more commonly called nightmare disorder and sleepwalking, respectively. Alone, they're both rather rare in adults, so together is even more uncommon, but the presence coupled with the severity of both, as seen in the video here, could mean there is an underlying medical or psychological issue. I would like to schedule you for another sleep study for further research and suggest you continue seeing your therapist, with these results in mind, to determine the psychological aspects of this issue. I agreed to both, the other sleep study and the further psychological treatment. "But what was I saying?" I asked again. "You said quite a bit," Dr. Brown said truthfully, "and most of it can't be heard on the recording, so we have to take the word of the nurse and the orderlies present that night. But according to them, you were talking about the owls." "The owls?" "Yes, the owls are coming through the window. Don't let them get me. You have to hide me from the owls. I don't want the owls to hurt me anymore. Things like that. I don't suppose, no. I have no idea why I was talking about owls," I said, before he could finish the question. "Didn't think so," he said. I thanked him for his time and made an appointment with the desk secretary for my next sleep study on my way out. I can't remember for the life of me why I would have said those things, but to be honest, the more I think about the owls, the more uneasy I get. There's something there, something that terrifies me on a deep level I don't really understand, and the fact that I know it's there, just below the surface, but still just beyond my grasp, bothers me even more. But not more than the owls. Edit. Dave is barking at the door. Something is in my house. Please help me. Oh God.